today we're going to go over some video fundamentals, and my goal is to give you some tips that hopefully you'll be able to take and use. We'll talk about lighting and audio and a couple other things too. So let's just go ahead and get started here. Okay, so tip number one is that lighting is critical for video. Okay, so lighting makes a big difference. Here is an example of a diagram. This is something you see all the time in lighting and videography and photography books, and this is a diagram of just a basic lighting setup. Okay, so this is the camera, that's a person, and top down. Okay, so what you're looking at right here is a key light. The key light is the main light that you use when you're trying to basically sculpt and create a three-dimensional image on a two-dimensional surface. So that's one of the challenges of video or photography, is that you're dealing with a two-dimensional plane, but you're trying to make it look three-dimensional to some extent. So that's where lighting really comes in. And the key light is your main light. It's the main light source. So if you're using artificial lights, if you're in a studio and you're using artificial lights, this would be, maybe a Chimera softbox or a fluorescent, Flow fluorescent light or something like that. If you're outside, a good key light might be the sun. So you could use the sun for this if you want to. That's a key light. What I'm showing you right now is what's called a three-point lighting setup. The fill light is this one over here on the opposite side of the camera. So let's say the key light is over here and it's shining on me this way. What the key light does is it casts shadows on this side of my face. So in fact, very typically you'll see a corner shadow come from the side of the nose. You'll see this a lot in movies and movies, television, stuff like that. You'll see this little shadow. And this patch, this triangle here, will still be lit, but this part will be in shadow. And what the fill light does, all it's supposed to do is fill in the shadows. Like, it determines how dense that shadow is. If you have no fill light at all, this is going to be a really dark shadow, and then you're dealing with, when you have dark shadows, that can be really stylized types of lighting. You might use that and we were just talking about 24. You might use that in an episode of 24 when somebody's being tortured. You're probably not going to have a lot of fill light. You're going to have the deep shadows. It creates that mystery. On the other hand, you might want to fill in the light all the way. But one thing that you see on news stations, and a mistake that a lot of people make when they're using fill lights, is they use too much light. If there's too much light, what happens is it casts another shadow. So, in fact, if you have too much light, it will look like this. The key light, this way, will cast a shadow going this way. And then the fill light over here will cast a shadow going this way, and usually it's not quite as dark. So what ends up happening is when you look at the face, you have two shadows off the nose, and you have two shadows underneath the chin, one shadow going this way, one shadow going this way. That's a problem. What that means is the fill light is too high, so you need to reduce it. You can use a lower wattage bulb, you can put more diffusion in front of it, you can do all kinds of stuff, but move it further away from the source. Okay, that's the fill light. The purpose of the fill light is to fill in the shadows created by the key light. Then, finally, you have the separation light, and that's the one behind the person. That's typically up and above, behind the person this way, and it shines down and it creates a rim around the person. As you're watching your next movie, whatever film you're watching next, watch for separation lights. This is one, to me, I was about to say this is one of the funnest things you can do when you're watching a movie, but I realize it's probably not, generally speaking, one of the funnest things that most people would do. But for me, I really enjoy doing that. It's a nice pastime. Okay, so when you're watching your next film, watch for a separation light. What you'll see is people will have a perfect glow, like a halo, around their hair. They'll have it around their shoulders. And what it does is it separates them from the background. It's like creating a border around the person that separates them. It basically sends the message to your eyes, this person is closer to the camera than what the background is. That's why it's called a separation light. It also highlights things. You can highlight hair. Sometimes they'll use it as a hair light. For me, being completely bald, I don't use it for hair at all. In fact, it usually creates problems for me. The separation light on me creates a giant shiny spot on my head. That can be a problem. Okay? So that's a typical three-point lighting setup. And I brought a video to show you that shows you every week we set up to shoot video in my living room. We shoot paper clipping, which is a scrapbooking show. Sometimes I'll shoot my Izzy video episodes. Sometimes we'll shoot Rolling R's, which is a Spanish show I produce, and we're producing some other shows here for the internet pretty soon. this is my living room before, and I brought this video to show you so you can see the transformation that goes through as we set up our studio. And this is... That's a fill light. This is the key light. And this is the separation light. There's a microphone set up on a boom, and we'll cover a little bit about that here in a little bit. Okay, so that's what it looks like before, and this is what it looks like actually through the camera. Let's see if I can do this.
There are three types of items that I recommend you have on hand when you can look on the first type are just really generic shapes.
Okay, so it gives you an idea of what it looks like afterwards. This is with just the key light on Noelle. This is my wife Noelle. This is my daughter Trinity. That's my son Blake right there. And what Noelle's showing here is a scrapbook layout that she's put together. And what I did is I said, hey, Noelle, just hold still for a second and smile at the camera because we're doing this presentation. This is yesterday we were shooting this. And I said I want to show what it looks like with just key and that kind of thing. This is key light only. One thing you'll notice is that I'm using a I don't know if you can see this very well, but you don't have a very solid shadow here next to her nose. It's a really diffused, they call it a shadow transfer, shadow edge transfer. And that's basically the transition of the shadow as it moves from the lit area to the shaded area. So what you have is a very gradual transition, and by looking at that, you can tell, oh, that's a soft light. Because a hard light, the shadow would have a very crisp edge. And a soft light, generally what that means is that you have just a giant light source. And I'm using one of those big soft boxes to light her. This is key light only. Watch what happens when I add the fill. And remember, the purpose of the fill light is just to add, to brighten up the shadows, to introduce some light into the shadows. So watch what happens here in the shadow area as I add a fill. Did you see that? Okay, so this is before. That's just key only. And the key, by the way, is what you set your exposure for. So you put the key light on, you set the exposure, and now you can add the fill, and boom. You can see there's a big difference there. Now, how much fill light you add will determine what your contrast ratio is. So if you want to have, like with me, I would never light myself this way because the only way that I look even remotely handsome and rugged is if I have lots of shadow on the other side of my face. So what I do is I light myself with a good key light, set the exposure, and then have very little fill. Very little. And I wouldn't light Noelle the same way. I don't want her to look rugged. So, I mean, she can. She wants, but anyway, awkward. Moving on. Okay. All right. So this is separation light only, and I turn this on just so you can see how it creates a little bright spot in her hair, and it creates a little bit of light on her shoulders here, and you can't really see all of it, but there's actually more of a faint outline there around it. Now this is the key and the fill together, but no separation light, and watch what happens when I add a separation light up here. Okay, so this is before, no separation, and then separation. So as lightens up her hair a little bit here, look, she even appears happier. All right, so that's a key light plus fill light to fill in the shadows, plus separation light to make her pop out, to make her seem three-dimensional, separate her from the background. That, a key light, fill light, and a separation light, that is what three-point lighting is. And that's how you do that. Okay. Any questions on three-point lighting? Yes?
How far behind the subject should the separation light be?
Totally depends on how much you want how intense you want the light to be. Like if you're trying to create something really intense and you want it to be just a white line around them, which sometimes looks good, then you have it up close. And if you move it further away, you're going to end up, that's usually how I control how intense that separation light is. Very typical would be, you never want it like directly above them, because then what happens is it brightens up the nose and they start to look like Rudolph. So you don't want it straight down above them. You set it behind, and usually, because I usually have the shoulders of the person sort of at an angle to the camera here, what I do is I put it behind, maybe up around here. If I'm standing right here, then the separation light's probably up here somewhere. That's a good question. The other thing is, if you're doing a full body shot, you're probably going to have it further away so that you can have the beam of the light, separate all of everything, their whole body. Other questions on
How long did it actually take you to set all that up?
45 minutes. That's a little tradition I go through every week. By the way, it still looks like that today. It was shot yesterday. So we usually leave it up for Tuesday and Wednesday when we're shooting, and then our living room returns to normal. And the kids aren't allowed to have friends over Tuesday, Wednesday. So other things. One thing I didn't touch on is that I just did a 3-point lighting in a studio type of environment. Even though it's my living room, we use studio lighting and all that stuff. You guys, the cost of studio lights can get really, really high. There's a lot of videos on the internet, on YouTube and stuff, that shows you how to sort of emulate studio type of lighting in a very inexpensive way, using like photo flood bulbs and lights that you can get from Home Depot. The cheapest way to set up 3-point lighting by a long shot, the cheapest way, way cheapest way, is to shoot outside. And then what you do, believe it or not, you can use the sun as a key light, but the problem there is it's so bright. What does your subject do? You squint. So you got, hey, welcome to another episode. That doesn't really work. So what I like to do, is to have them actually have the sun be to their back. And every photography magazine and article you'll read will say never shoot with the sun to the subject's back, right? And the reason why is because usually you don't have the ability to fill in the shadows. It creates really dark shadows here. If the sun's there, I've got this dark shadow on my face. And so what you need then, this is the cheapest way to go, is you get some springs and diffusion panels. And I'll have some pictures here in a little bit, but you have some springs and diffusion panels, and then you have somebody else here, or you get a light stand or a C-stand or something like that with sandbags on it, and then you take that diffusion panel and you bounce the sunlight, like if that projector light is the sun, then what happens is I can take this diffusion panel and bounce the sunlight right up into your face, and it's going to brighten it up. In fact, I can do two different things if I want. I can say, okay, the sun is your separation light. That creates a beautiful halo around someone. Then I take a diffusion panel here, bounce the sunlight here up into your face. That creates a key light type of dimension. And then on the other side, to add a little bit more modeling, I might have another diffusion panel, maybe put it a little further away from your face, and then bounce a little sunlight up into there that way. So now you've got key, fill, separation light, and a diffusion panel might be $50. So you could, for $100 and outside, and you just need a couple people to hold them real still if you can, but you can set up a nice 3-point lighting system outdoors. It's always the same thing everywhere you go. 3-point lighting, 3-point lighting, 3-point lighting. It's the same thing. If you're outdoors, if you're indoors, it's what you see in every film. It's what you see everywhere. And then the reason why is because it really works. In fact, there's a type of lighting called Rembrandt lighting. Anybody want to guess why it's called Rembrandt lighting? Anybody want to guess?
It's got a lot of shadows in Rembrandt.
Well, yeah, because it's the same kind of lighting that Rembrandt used to use on his subjects when he painted them. So, and anyway, the idea is that 3-point lighting. Anyway, I've said enough about that. Let's keep going. Okay.
What time of day is the best? If you're shooting outside, what time of day is the best time to shoot?
Good question. If you're shooting outside, best times of day are when the sun's at an angle. Okay, so not noon, and it depends on the look that you're going for, because you can get some amazing looks at sunrise and at sunset. But generally speaking, you want to say I don't know, here in Arizona, maybe 8:39 and maybe 3:30, something like that, right around there. Okay, so you get those angles. Good question. But you can get some amazing looks. They have what they call magic hour, and that's when the sun is just going down, and there's this gorgeous orange diffused light everywhere. And you have it actually at sunset, and you also have at sunrise. but you have to get up pretty early to do sunrise, so most people just use sunset stuff. You know, it doesn't last very long. But you can get some amazing, I mean, the lighting is just fantastic. Especially if you have them backlighting the person at sunrise, you get a little lens flare in there. Let's just talk about that for a little while. All right, let's talk about audio. This is the second portion that I think is very important. Lighting is very important, and a lot of times you watch videos on YouTube and they don't really pay attention to lighting much. In fact, last night, Noel and I were watching this video of this amazing singer. It was this guy who lives in Illinois. I don't even remember his name or whatever. But he was singing this cover. He was playing his guitar and a microphone. He sounded better than the original band, I thought. We listened to it over and over again. The lighting was horrible. It would have been so much better if they would have been lit right and all that stuff. And the audio was fantastic, by the way. Okay, audio is sometimes ignored. And you have a few different options when it comes to audio. The first one is this kind of microphone, stick microphone. It goes like this. I like using stick microphones, handheld microphones like this. This is for like a journalist type of thing. If you're going to be a reporter on location, you use something like this. You also have the other kind of microphones, like, what do I show next here? A little lavalier microphone, they call them little helmites. I don't know if you can really see it. It's this little tip here is a lavalier microphone, and it just clicks on. You see it all the time, right? Interviewees, like that, clips on. You also have the highest quality sound, I believe, in my opinion, what I like to hear comes from a shotgun microphone like this one. This is usually what I use. That is this microphone without the windscreen on it. So what we do is, as you saw in my studio setup, I mount this above our heads and it just points down to our mouths. It's a highly directional microphone. So if there's a big fall off, if I point it right at your mouth, it picks you up pretty well from maybe a few feet away. But if I point it this way, it doesn't pick you up nearly as well. It's highly directional. They call it cardioid, for anybody that's interested. Okay. The number one question that I get is, what should I look for in a camera? In fact, the number one question I get is, I want to get a video camera. My budget is $500. What camera should I get? That's the number one question I get all the time. So my answer to that is, that depends. It changes all the time. It depends, of course, what you're going to be using it for, and also what's the camera that's out right now that fits these specifications. What I'm going to do is show you some things that in my opinion, you look for in a camera, and this will help you sort of decide what you're going to get. The first thing is this little mic input, this little mini mic jack. Okay, so right now, I don't know of a lot of cameras that are under $500 that have an external mic input on them. I don't know if this is the case, but I believe that most of the Canon consumer-level camcorders have them on there, but I don't think all of them do. And I know, based on I haven't bought a camera recently, but my understanding is there's not a whole lot of options out there. So if I had to make a choice between, okay, this one camera doesn't have a mic input, but the imagery is just amazing. You know, people are talking about it like crazy. If I had to make a choice between that and this other camera where the image is good, but it has an external mic input, I would recommend you go with the one with the external mic input, because the audio is just as important as the video. And if it has a good image and it has a mic input on it, that's the one I would use. Okay? So you need the ability to get an external microphone. When people say, what should I get? I say, get bare minimum, get a camera and a microphone. Camera and a microphone, bare minimum. Because the camera, if I'm right here and I'm with my camera and I'm shooting video of you over there, and you're talking, the audio here, this is the microphone. The microphone needs to be where the source is. So you need to have a microphone on you. It's just as important as getting a camera, in my opinion. All right, so that's number one thing I would look for in a camera under $500 would be an external mic input. The next thing I would look for would be a high-definition camera. And a little while ago, when I first got this camera, October, a couple years ago or whatever, I made a little video that showed the difference between high definition and standard definition. It features my daughter Trinity. I thought I would share it with you today. Let's see if this works. This is the image from the Sony camera right here. That's the image from my old Canon GL2. And that's, by the way, this is the difference in resolution. So that's the size of the image that you get with a standard. That's the high def. Big difference. Hopefully you guys can see there's a difference in the image. She didn't even know I was shooting her. So you get the idea that there's a difference between high definition and standard definition. And the way the world is moving, it's moving towards high definition. Every time somebody sends me an email, it probably happens once every couple of weeks, where somebody says something like, hey, I'm looking at getting a camera. I'm just going to go ahead and stick with standard definition. To me, that's, hey, it's not a standard definition world anymore. Everything's moving towards high definition. You guys, my television in my living room, which you saw, it's not even a high definition television. I don't have HD TV, but the whole world is moving towards HD, except for me apparently in my living room. But the whole world's moving towards HD, so I would recommend an HD camera. The costs are pretty low. Okay, tapeless. Let's see here. Oh yeah. So the three things to look for in a camera under $500 would be: number one, external microphone jack; number two, high definition video; number three, tapeless. Okay, tapeless. Tapeless is the future. My camera that I'm using right now shoots onto what's called an SYS card. It's a Sony proprietary thing. This little card, it's 8 gigabytes, and 8 gigabytes, and it holds about 28 minutes worth of video, full video, full frame. So 28 minutes. You have to have a lot of those cards if you're going to be shooting a long event, or you can swap them out. But you can shoot on the tape, but I don't recommend it. That's an old format. We're moving away from that. Everything's going tapeless in the future. Okay, so Panasonic cameras have the P2 cards. Sony has the SYS cards. A lot of cameras shoot on the little SD cards now. Some of them have hard drives inside, but everybody's moving away from tape. So 3 things to look for: microphone jack, high definition video, tapeless workflow. And here's my contact information. And now we can answer any questions. Yes?
Do you lose, obviously it's changed, but everything's digital, there's no tape. So do you lose anything from that? Are you losing any benefit?
Well, sometimes people feel like the benefit that they're losing is the archiving part of it. Just turn it off. The archiving part of it. So, my personal thing is, it's made my life a million times easier because I shoot a lot of video. So the speed of a tapeless workflow is so much better. When if I shoot 28 minutes worth of video on here and I plug this into my computer, I can transfer all the video onto my computer in just a few minutes, where before it would take me 28 minutes to transfer, video, or a whole tape would be like 55, 60 minutes. It would take 60 minutes to dump the footage into your computer. So the tapeless workflow is definitely a lot faster. You give up the ease of just archiving a tape, putting it in your little tray or whatever, but I don't really think so.
Not a resolution issue.
Oh, definitely not a resolution. In fact, this shoots a lot better than any tapeless. The resolution is still 1920 by 1080, but it's higher quality than what you would get on a tape, which is compressed for the HDV format if you're shooting HDV. And HDV is actually, not a great codec. It's designed to be able to put high definition video on a little tape, and it's not very high quality. The stuff that people are coming out with now is much better. Good question. What other questions? Yes?
So you have diminished capacity, right? If you're using the tables per flow. How do you deal with that if you are shooting a longer type?
First of all, let me ask this. What's diminished capacity?
Well, so you said you get about 28 minutes versus
Yes.
maybe 55 minutes.
Yes.
How do you deal with that in your
Well, you get bigger cards. This one's only 8 gigabytes, but 16 gigabyte card will hold about 50 minutes, so it's like having a tape. But the biggest thing that I found out going to tapeless was my biggest challenge was going to be just archiving and storage. So what I have in my closet is I don't want to tell you guys all where my library of video is, but here's where it is. It's I have a whole bunch of hard drives. I just buy these naked hard drives like what go in your computer, and I just have a whole bunch of hard drives in little plastic cases, almost like old VCR tapes. And I just keep. When one fills up, I buy a terabyte, and then when it fills up, I put it on the shelf, and then buy another terabyte, put it on the shelf, and I keep 2 copies of everything, one at my house and one at somebody else's house. And so I use a Super Duper on the Mac to make just absolute perfect copies of all the hard drives. Data management is a big challenge in the tapeless. Does that sort of answer that question?
Yeah. My next question would be about how are you doing with the archiving all that?
Yeah, a whole bunch of hard drives. We store hard drives. 1 terabyte hard drives now the way, but they're so cheap.
What about longer term than that? Because hard drives will be great if you have issues with that.
Yeah, and actually what I have to do is I have it at tax time. So once every 3 months, I take it and I transfer all the data from one drive to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. This is a little, just so that they're all spin up and copy once every few months. Because I'm nervous about losing stuff. I did have a drive go bad a long time ago, and I lost a whole bunch of original footage. That was pretty upsetting. But there's really, without spending a lot of money, there's no perfect solution yet right now. And to me, the best solution in terms of solution at a value, price to performance, all that stuff, just naked hard drives. That's the way to do it right now. I have one of those little dots. It looks like a little, almost like. What is it?
VCR.
Yeah. Well, what I'm talking about is the little dock. It plugs into your computer either through eSATA, FireWire, or USB. It's a little dock, and you just stick your hard drive in it like it's a game cartridge. You know what I mean? That's what I use. So I just plug a drive in, copy a bunch of stuff onto it, unplug it, and that's how I do that. I'd like to do other things. I'd like to do solid state drives. That'd be awesome. That'd be very expensive. What else? Other questions? Yes.
Is the shotgun mic stereo?
This one's not. They do have stereo microphones. They do have stereo microphones. I don't know a specific model to recommend, but you could have 2 of these and just run both and have a stereo type of effect. All my audio I record in mono. This one's for anybody that's interested, it's a Sennheiser ME66. It's the first, somebody, like a 20-year veteran, when I first got serious about video, a 20-year veteran recommended I get this mic, and so far it sounded better than any other mic that I've compared it to, and it's my original mic, and it's the one I still use today on 95% of everything I shoot. The upside of using a shotgun microphone, the upside is the sound quality is so amazing. The downside is, a couple downsides. Number one is you either need a stand or somebody to hold this. That's why you see those folks in the movies that are holding the boom poles like this. You need somebody to hold this above the subject's head. So that's a downside potentially. Or if somebody's walking around, if we're miking me right now and I was walking around like this, it's not very feasible for somebody to be holding this above my head, as I'm walking around. That would be weird. So that would be the downside of using them, but the sound quality is so much better. So when you're doing the kind of stuff I tend to do, which is a talking head with somebody sitting on a chair somewhere, then it's no big deal to use something like this. I just take an extra couple minutes to set it up. The quality is so much better. You can get pretty high quality lavalier microphones, but to me, the sound quality is just not as good as a shotgun. Yes?
What do you use for video editing software?
I'm a Final Cut Pro guy. But, I really like Final Cut Pro and people that do. It's the number one thing, that's probably the number 2 request I get is if we show how to edit on the PC. I just don't have one. So, I have an old one, but I don't do video editing. What else? Other questions?
What is your wireless? It's a Sennheiser as well.
This is a Sennheiser, and I just got this microphone. I got 2 of them actually about a week ago, and then I left one of them on the kitchen table. The dog got on the table and ate it.
Oh.
The same day I got it. I didn't even have a chance to use it. It was still in the package. And he chewed it up. He didn't eat it. He chewed it up like a chew toy. It was demolished. I was so mad. So mad. That was the closest that dog got to defeating our family. You know, this is called an MKE1, Sennheiser MKE1, Mickey 1. About $350 for one of these. And that's a low-end mic. They get much higher than that. Go ahead.
We're a wedding photography company, and I just recently hired on a videographer. One of his biggest challenges is lighting on location, getting away from on-camera lighting. Quick tips: it could be here's why Stevie first, but he would say he's a big fan.
Oh, that's cool.
Watch your videos.
Oh, well, thanks.
But yeah, quick tips for lighting, and really, I'm sure there's other people here. You go to a wedding or whatever.
Yeah.
You may not bring the lighting setup, but
Yeah. Well, okay, so let me start with the disclaimer that I don't shoot a lot of weddings. I've only shot 2, and that's probably the only 2 I'll ever shoot. They were both favors for folks, and I don't do any more of those favors. So, yeah, there's not much you can do other than on-camera lighting. I mean, honestly, that's probably the best thing you're able to do is put a light on the camera, and because, you know, if we were shooting a film, that'd be totally different. Like if I wanted to light this room for film, then I would set up different pools of light. You know, if I know, as an actor, if I know I'm going to be right here, and then, you know, part of my scene is I walk over here and then I say something, and then I walk over here and I say something. If I know that, if everything's totally predictable, then you can set up, okay, I'm going to set up a 3-point lighting system for when he's standing here, and I'm going to set it up for when he's standing here, and I'll set up something else for when he's standing there. Can't do that with a light. So, I mean, 2 things you can do. In a room, you can put lights in the corners, bounce it off the ceiling if they have low ceilings, which a lot of times they don't, or maybe off white walls or something like that, just to raise the ambient light up. But guess who's not going to like that? The bride. The people getting married, they're like, wow, this is the brightest wedding I've ever been to. You know? And so really what you're going to do is just crank up the gain on your camera, and you're going to deal with some on-camera lighting, you know, deer and headlight flux, and stuff like that. But bouncing off walls, bouncing off ceilings, if you can put some lights in corners, that will really help. But realistically, not much you can do. I hate to say that too, because it's just not. I mean, if it's unpredictable, you don't know where everybody's going to be. And I guess it would make sense. I don't know if anybody's I've never been to a wedding where they had like lights set up to where the ceremony was taking place itself, like maybe where they're up at the whatever it's called, and they're doing the vows and all that stuff. Maybe you could set up some lighting there.
You could do a 3-point setup for interviews, though. I've seen
Absolutely.
weddings where people talk, you know, give their little message and stuff.
Yes, I've done that actually, and that's a great idea. So you have one little area, and you set up a 3-point lighting setup, and they sit down and they say, I remember when I first met Amber, and blah, 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 you know, and this is so embarrassing, I tell this story, you know, all that stuff. Yeah, you can do that, absolutely. Great, yes?
What would you recommend for an on-light camera? I've been looking around for one of them. There's a lot of options out there.
For like it was on the camera?
Light on the camera, yeah. I've shot a few concerts, and it's just what I've gone to shoot. Oh, it's horrible.
Oh, you mean without a light on the camera?
Yeah.
You shot some concerts?
Yeah, and it's just been horrible. The venues really get picky on setting up stuff because then it's a disclaimer.
Right.
On that issue.
Somebody will trip over a cord and catch the place on fire.
Something like that, anything.
Yeah.
And I've been looking at the LED lights, but they only come with a 4-month warranty. And like I've just been told the parts break on those all the time.
This is an LED light that I use for my on-camera light, but I don't know if that's going to help a lot in a concert.
You know, that's one thing I don't know. Like,
See, I can hardly in here. It's hardly making a difference. Like okay, so before, see, it's doing something a little bit to your face, but not much. See, so in a concert where it's dark, it might make a little bit of a difference, but if you're talking about shooting the people in the crowd, this would really be helpful. If you're talking about shooting the people on the stage, hopefully the stage lights will produce the light, the ambient, light that you need to be able to shoot.
Yeah, I just had situations where it doesn't help, and
yeah.
I didn't know.
What I recommend everybody always do when you're looking at different gear is, if you can, rent the gear first so that you can save yourself a lot of heartache, because you can spend a lot of money and be very dissatisfied on something. This is an inexpensive light, but they get really expensive.
How much did that light cost?
This is like $500.
Expensive, huh?
This is low end, yeah.
Yeah.
This is cheap. So, yeah. Okay, good questions. I think we have a couple more minutes.
I'm curious, how long does it take you to put together one of your
Tutorials?
yes. So it's about 10 to 15 minutes.
I would say typically it's like 5 or 6 minutes long, my videos, and usually it'll take I don't know, maybe a couple hours of sort of writing it, preparing it, and figuring out how we're going to shoot it, and then it depends on the tutorial, but there's some where I just can't get it right, and so we do 50 or it seems like 50 takes of the exact same segment. So I don't know, let's say maybe say 2-3 hours of shooting for 5 minutes of video, and then maybe say I don't know, a couple hours for editing, transcoding, rendering, maybe, I don't know, total hours, 6, 7, 8 hours, something like that. Varies. Sometimes I'm not as much of a perfectionist and it might only take 3 or 4 hours. But, yeah. Other questions? Yes?
Kind of 2 questions.
Yeah.
But somewhat similar is, when you publish to the internet, what's your preferred source? You know, just half-play that you've
Yes.
done. And what are your preferred sources? Why do you like that over other potential sources? And then, if you've done any streaming or like live broadcasting, do you have a preference for a solution there?
Yeah. So second part is I haven't done a lot of streaming. The only thing I've ever used is Ustream. It's done a nice job, but you can't. I don't think you can stream in HD like real HD through it, which is a limitation. But I've watched Leo Laporte sometimes, and he does. He uses a great service. I can't remember what it's called though. Bitrate.
And he's got as well as Ustream as Sky.
Yeah. So Bitrate. Yeah, I'm really impressed with the quality that comes out of that. It's awesome. For actually posting videos on the web, now keep in mind, what I like is really good imagery, so I actually compromise. I know that there are some people that go try to watch my videos that can't watch them because they don't have QuickTime, because I actually post everything, the MP4 format, the file format is MP4, and the codec I use is H.264. And so my assumption is that they have QuickTime on their machine, that it's a recent version of QuickTime. When they show up at my website, they can click play and just watch it. I do that, and then a few months ago I started posting in Flash format. I used the long tail player is the name of the Flash player, and all I do, this is crazy, one of my audience members told me about this. I did not think this would work, but what I did is I took my MP4 file and I just changed the extension to FLV, and it played. It played in the browser, and if somebody has a recent version of Flash player on their machine, they can play this exact same file. I just changed the extension. That's it. To me, it seems like that's got to break at some point. I don't know, because I'm not like re-encoding as a Flash or whatever. If the recent versions of Flash play. So that's what I do.
So where are you storing that stuff? Are you just storing that in the local on your machine or whatever?
Yeah, 2 things. I have my host. I use DreamHost for my host, and I store a video file that I think is not going to be played very much. I store there. But then the video files that I think are going to get lots of downloads, like the ones that are hooked into RSS feeds and all that stuff, I store those on Libsyn. I have 3 different Libsyn accounts right now because it's still the cheapest way to get unlimited bandwidth. It's just so awesome. And so every time I max it out, I just go get another Libsyn account. It's still cheap. Even though I'm paying for 3 $60 a month plans, it's still cheaper than what it would cost if it was, And I don't even get that many downloads relative to like some of the shows that are out there. They get millions and stuff. I was talking to Evo Terra. He's getting like 80,000 downloads a day, and he uses Libsyn for hosting his media. Other questions? Yes.
What's hooked onto the bottom of your camera in between the tripod? That aluminum red.
This?
Yep.
That's a base plate. That's a Zacuto base plate. That is so that I can quickly take this off and put the shoulder mount thing on it, and I can use it on. It just gives me the ability to use it on my shoulder. Or if I have some other accessories that they don't have, like Sonny's lettuce, which is the lens adapter that goes on the front. You'll notice he has a rail system where it has something attached on the front, and you can attach the camera lenses on it. We're going to spend some time later playing with Sonny's unit.
Please don't come with it.
Hey, there's not.
Wow. All right. Anything else? Yes. Okay, so you guys, he's going to thank me for this one, but I just found a really great resource. For several years, I've been buying a VH Photo, okay? And that's one that everybody pretty much knows about, VH Photo. Here's what I love about VH Photo. You order something from VH Photo, it comes a few days later, and you've got it, and it's fun to get a package in the mail and all that kind of stuff. But what you don't get to do at VH Photo is you don't get to actually use the stuff sometimes before you buy it. You don't get the, I personally haven't spent a lot of time with them on the phone asking, getting their advice on stuff and things like that. So I found this guy in Tempe. I got invited to this open house, Sennheiser actually, who does the audio, the microphones that I like to use. Sennheiser sent an invite. They said, hey, we're going to be doing this open house at this BKW in Tempe. I'd never heard of it. It's a one-man shop. It's like one guy that works there. He can get everything. And like this microphone, he sold it to me for $335 at VH Photo. It was $380. So it was actually a little cheaper to get it for him. And while I was there, he let me try all kinds of stuff I'd never tried before. He let me play with like the 1x1 light panels, and I got to actually use one of those. And before that, I had decided at some point I think I'd like to go with the LED lighting. But then after using this for about 10 minutes, I said, LED lighting is definitely not for me right now. There's some problems, there's some problems with it. So anyway.
What was it called again?
It's called BKW. It's in Tempe, and the website is bkwinc.net, inc.net. His website's not that great, but he can get pretty much everything you need. And that's who I'm using right now for getting stuff. Yeah. Anything else? I don't know what this means. I think it means we're done. I guess they're expecting everybody to want to make a quick exit. So any other questions? All right. Well, thanks for coming to the brown bag today.